Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Well, Richie, another Sunday again. And can you imagine? I feel like we just do a show yesterday. These Sundays are coming so fast. And we're already halfway through the month.
We're almost halfway through the year. Think about that.
We still have a couple more weeks to go. And then it's the start of hurricane season.
Don't even go there. But the hurricane we're going to have today is a hurricane called
Fab
5.
5, or the Fabulous 5 Incorporated.
Fab 5
Jamaica's biggest, baddest party band.
Yeah, they call them party and show band.
Let me tell you something. The man them have a couple of CDs called the Party Mix. And I'm going at some rock steady. When Grub Cooper is singing, you can't tell me saying John Holt and Alton Ellis.
Dennis Brown.
The man have a pitch where just him can almost like, you remind me of the guy who used to sing at Charlie's, Trevor Roper.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Roper could, remember that song that he did? But anyway, it's not about Charlie, it's about Fab 5.
Biggest show band in Jamaica, most popular. And in fact, they've been on the road for a long time. Started in 1970. And they...
Before you're born.
Listen, I would take a few years. About 1970. So we're talking about 53 years.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a long time.
To still be around.
And still be active.
And still touring.
Yeah. So
that made Grub Cooper about 100.
The band was started with who? Grub Cooper and Frankie Campbell. His brother Conroy.
Yeah.
Well, so it's 5 of them. Well, it started out as 5 and then...
And then 6, but I'm still 5. Right. So I give you 5 for 6.
5 plus 1. But seriously speaking, been around a long time, have a significant impact on Jamaican music and the development of the music. And I think, one of the reasons why I thought it's appropriate to single them out and provide that mention. I mean, I heard an interview with Frankie Campbell. He talked about a lot of these artists who basically just leaving the scene. In the case of Fab 5, I think they lost had 2 or 3 of the members over the years. Lost what's his name? Ricky, Walters,
right.
And Grub Cooper's brother, what's his name? Conroy.
Yeah, he was sadly found dead in his home some years ago. I'm a bridging too,
Yeah. But you know all of them guys pretty well.
He used to have a one-man show that used to go around by this place off of Barbican. And I think Fab 5 studio was off a road near Constant Spring Road, right near Dunrobin.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I've met them. But Conrad and I had a good friendship back in the day. As a matter of fact, I was watching a program on TVJ some time ago, and he was playing. And I was like, I haven't heard from Conrad in so much years, like it's not since 2010. And then when I went and look him up, I realized that he sadly had passed away. So, yeah, rest in peace, Conrad. He's an eccentric individual. He was a man who dealt in alternative therapies, and he was an excellent musician.
How he died? What was this?
I didn't get to see, but apparently, I remember once though, back in the late 90s, the man said he was going to do a breatharian thing, like he was just going to live off a year. But notwithstanding, I can tell you they're excellent musicians. They also changed the landscape of the commercials. A lot of the commercials that you hear in Jamaica is Grub Cooper.
Yeah, but let's jump into the music part of the thing, because you are correct. They're multifaceted, and then what is worse is that almost every member of the band, they're trained musicians. So it's not like you're bringing. The other thing with them too is they basically survived that era in Jamaican music when the music was largely live music. If you in the 60s coming into the 1970s, there were a lot of bands, especially on the club stretch from Sombrero, Tit for Tat, Stables, all those clubs on Red Hills Road, everybody had their own bands, and they made that transition while a lot of the other artists basically merged with other musicians, singers, and became part of their touring ensemble.
They stayed together.
They stayed together.
And not only that, they developed their own record label.
Yes.
But before we even get any further, Richard, a song that I would like to introduce, and this was one of the first songs, before the other ones that were there before. This was the first song that introduced me to Fab Five, and it was a jukebox favorite back in the day, and this was a couple of years after they were formed, 1975, and it's this song. This, Richie, is basically one of those things where, you know, the man them had such a play on words, you know. She fell a step in a big pile of shaving cream.
No, that was a favorite. I remember as a young
bars,
as a young boy coming through high school in them time, when you were a house party. This a new tune, but it was a big hit. What is it?
And it has like a mental feel.
Yes, that
and
is.
Grub did his best to sound like a countryman, and I can say morning instead of morning.
But as you played that, there was they started out. I think one of the earliest recording.
1972
was in 1972 when they really hit the tins. That first record, Come Back and Stay.
Yes.
And then, you know, there are a couple of other songs that became big songs over time. Now, one of the things about Fab Five and the world, yes, is the songs creep up on you. And I think we should probably, the listeners like it is, Come Back and Stay.
It's Peter Scarlett on that one, Richard, Come Back and Stay. Again, them songs what you call country music, countryman music.
No, but if you look back,
people at town never used to listen to them.
I don't know if I agree with you, because I born and grew up. I barely know a country there until me about 15 years old.
Richard, from the minute you pass out of St. Catherine out the South of Ferry, you'll be a country.
You'll be surprised how much people live in Kingston.
As a matter of fact, Mavis Bank a country. As a matter Papina country.
No, Papina is still Kingston.
No, it's not Kingston, it's St. Andrew.
But the point I'm making is, in the 1970s, when this band is finding its footing, because one of the features of that late 60s, 70s period, as I said earlier, with the bands had to be able to play everything.
Yes.
Because a band was almost in competition with the sound systems that had proliferated throughout. And so if the band want to earn them stripes, especially in that developing nightclub scene, you had to be able to play from mento, ska, disco, rocksteady, reggae, R&B,
everything.
Disco. You have to play everything,
especially
soca, everything.
if you're on the hotel circuit.
And that's where these guys came from. They came through that playing experience, if you will, and so it informed a lot of what they were doing. You talk about Peter Scarlett, who led on this Come On Back and Stay track. Another track that he did, he wrote, was a song called Asking for Love, which again, that was another creeper song, if you will, because the song basically over time, it became, as time passed, the song became more and more popular, and almost you wouldn't be a sound system man that worth your salt if you can't draw asking for love. You really could taste.
Steppers thrown, listen and brethren. Steppers thrown, all the steppers them out there.
If you have a sound system or you claim say you're a disco man and you can find a tune there, leave the record playing. Ricky Walters, who was he wrote the song, and
Peter Scarlett.
Scarlett was the lead vocal. Ricky Walters, who played lead guitar on the song itself. I think he passed away a couple of years ago, right here in Florida. But again, tight little group, eh?
Yeah, man.
And
What I love about them is their mastery over, what they do, and even when they played at the pantomimes, because the man have them hand in at everything.
rock group in particular.
Yes.
Well, I think what is important to recognize is that these were really serious. They were gifted.
Not where they are.
Yeah. A couple of them transition, but the fact is there's a gifted group of musicians.
Yes.
And apart from having the gift, they solidified that most of them are trained musicians as well.
And they also nurtured other talents, such as the Unique Vision Band, And this is a band that's made up specifically of guys who had a sight impairment. Rob himself and his brother Conroy also had sight impairments.
One of the things with Fab Five is that in that 1970 spirit, I think it's 1972. What's his name?
Johnny Nash.
Johnny Nash was in Jamaica. In fact, Johnny Nash spent a fair amount of time in Jamaica in the transition 70s, early 70s period, and he did I think he did 2 albums. One album in particular.
I can see clearly now.
That Fab Five provided the backing on that album. Hold Me Tight was one of the songs.
Yeah.
And I can see clearly now.
And there's another one that I'm going to squeeze in, a song called There Are More Questions Than Answers.
More Questions Than Answers. Pictures in my mind.
Yeah. So I tell you, I kind of still prefer the Jamaican version still, but now I take one from Johnny Nash. Here is I Can See Clearly Now, Johnny Nash.
The more I find out, the less I know.
The powerful words that, think about.
Yeah, man, the more you know, you realize how little you know.
The more I find out, less. Well, listen, here's a group though that the more of the music you listen to, is the more you realize the depth and penetration. This is a group that played with, as we talk about Johnny Nash here, they covered, worked with a lot of artists, both locally and internationally.
Yeah,
I mean, them roster huge. If you think in terms of the work rate. I mean, 50 years of music is a whole heap. They took Jamaican music basically around the globe. Similar to people like Mali and so on. They did their own stuff, and Ray Charles, Dizzy Gillespie, Grateful Dead, Rick James, the Drifters. Just to give you an idea
of the international artists that
they played with. And remember, apart from, well, first of all, they were a road band, so they're always on the road, traveling. They were a preferred concert band. Almost every foreign artist who come to Jamaica,
who didn't have their own band,
they were the backing band, and so they were playing with groups like the Shy Lights. They were Skeeter Davis. In fact, they were doing some work with Skeeter Davis in terms of building out some stuff for her, in the period that she passed on.
It does show you that the man, the mastery over music.
Oh, absolutely. You said something about going up to Cooper's house and listen and hear this classical music.
One Saturday morning, Conrad and I was supposed to go. I think, I don't remember exactly what it was. I know I had to go pick him up on campus somewhere. And I went to the house in Barbican. And after I drove up and I came out, I heard this wicked piece of classical music. And I knew it was Frederick Chopin, because Frederick Chopin, of all the classical artists, I'm very particular, a great pianist. And I'm listening to that, I'm like, yo, I forget that CD with Conroy plays. So I knock on the door and music lock off and them come and them open the door and I say, yo, Bridget, I want the CD there where you play. Me if make a CD, me not. I say, give me the cassette then. I say, it's not a cassette, and me a play. So I say, you a play? I say, yeah man, and the man sit down in front of him, keyboard Virgin and started playing. And trust me, and he was playing from memory. Not even he didn't have sheet music up, he was playing from memory.
Amazing. Talent, gift, just, you know. Frankie Campbell talked about that. It seemed to have been a feature of most of the musicians. Because he said the same thing about Grub Cooper. That they were doing a show and people asked for a song that the band had probably not rehearsed in 10 years. And Grub Cooper, once he catch the first
photographic memory, man,
him just belt out the song the same way. You know? But just to give the listeners and the viewers a little more of an indication of the depth of the coverage. Ray Goodman and Brown, the Manhattans, Jerry Butler, Al Melvin and the Blue Notes, Gladys Knight, Aretha Franklin, Mighty Sparrow. I mean, you know, Jimmy Cliff.
As we talk about Mighty Sparrow, Fab Five's hold on soca, calypso / soca, when the man them thing, like Ring Road Jam, and You Safe, and All Night Party, and, you know, the man them have the soca thing down, Richie. You couldn't tell me say it was not a Trinidadian band that was playing, you know.
And again, you talk about the song You Saved, them had an album that was issued under that name.
And then also another album named Shape.
Yeah, but Ring Road Jam, big tune.
I remember when that, because remember before Jamaica Carnival as it is now, there was 3 carnivals that happened in Jamaica. There was Orange Carnival that was held up by Hillel Academy.
Right.
There was Oak Ridge Carnival, which is part of the Manor Park Uptown Concert Springs Scape. And then there was the carnival at UWI.
University of the
And
West
the
Indies.
Ring Road is almost the perimeter road, which is, you know, around UWI or inside of UWI. And that is where you went and jumped carnival. And
Give the people a
the Ring Road Jam.
Ring Road Jam.
Yeah man, bad piece of tune. Now I remember this song, Richie, and in terms of the safe meaning, it was a little buzzword back in the day. And man said, "Know yourself, man, you're safe."
Yeah, man.
Yes, so nice soca song. Started out with Ring Road Jam and then Don't Wear None. Nice play on implying or implication. It was really talking about makeup, not being nude. And then there's You Safe. And there was a couple other songs to, like, you know, Feeling Horny and All Night Party and them tune and Good Body.
Well, I tell you something,
Some
guys.
nice soca tune.
It was I was never a soca fan. You know,
Never.
never a fan of soca.
One of my favorite genres
But
still.
going to UWI and being in a campus environment, especially during that carnival, because remember this was long before Jamaica Carnival thing,
Yeah man.
busted. So they kind of provided that introduction to carnival. As you say in the song, him talk about not having the money to buy plane fare to go to Trinidad.
Right.
So they might keep them carnival jam right there on Ring Road at the University of the West Indies.
And then of course UWI is a big melting pot. A
It
lot of
was,
people
right.
from
the rest of the Caribbean were up here, and
the Leeward Islands.
the whole soca thing was a massive part of that southern and eastern Caribbean culture, and you know, Fab Five basically made you feel comfortable regardless of where you come from.
You
In
know,
fact,
the mastery of the soca genre or calypso, as is expressed also in the safe, because Ring Road and Don't Wear None has a more of a soca feel, while Your Safe is more of a calypso feel.
I think too, what was important for a band that was on the road, and what this demonstrated to is their unwillingness to limit themselves. You know, this was a clear decision to broaden the range, the repertoire. And again, remember, in them days, your competition was the disco.
Yes.
And in
So
that
you have to compete.
70s, 80s period, if you can match the disco in terms of vibe and how you jam, you can't eat no food. And it just underlined why I hear Frankie Campbell talking about in an interview. He had an interview with a guy from out of, I think it's North Carolina, or one of them East Coast radio station, and he was talking about the the future for Fab Five, especially after that COVID thing. Because um, live entertainment was Fab Five's forte. They played regularly. In fact, they're a staple at the KC Big Dance here in South Florida, um, which is every November. That's probably one of the biggest fundraiser for anywhere or any Jamaican-based organization. And it's Fab Five. They back everybody. Freddie McGregor is a regular. Going again back to that KC party, but there were a whole heap of other local entertainers that are back. Marcia Griffiths, Queen Ifrica, Mr. Vegas, Taros Riley, Barris Hammond. So without a doubt, they were well prepared, and
the depth of their musicality.
and then to make to put the icing on the cake, again, the talent of the musician. Grub Cooper, you mentioned earlier. Grub Cooper was the arranger for a lot of the musical scores of the pantomime.
Yes.
And
yes, it was.
This is a place that pantomime. I don't know if we still have pantomime in Jamaica.
When you think about the fact that all of us are given 24 hours in a one day, the amount of work that this man does, you wonder if he have a 36-hour day.
48-hour day.
Because not only did he not have his hand in pantomime, he also had his hand in doing commercials, working with some of the bigger agencies in Jamaica, and also with JCVC with the festivals. And he got quite a lot of wins working with a man called Roy Ryan.
Eric Donaldson. In fact, I think them have.
I can play a Roy Ryan song that I know. I'm not quite sure.
There were some 10 festival songs that winning festival entries. In fact, they did a lot of the arrangements for a lot of the entries in festivals.
Yes.
And over the years, 10 of those entries, provided them with victories. But we hear the music.
Roy Ryan, Fever, 1985. All right, we gave you Fever, and then we also gave you, in my opinion, the best festival song.
I think is the biggest and the best festival. Yeah, I'm telling
Land of My Birth, 1978, festival winner by Mr. Eric Donaldson.
I think that song was voted overall the best festival song of all time. And the music and lyrics for the song was written by Fab Five. In fact, it demonstrated that kind of impact that they had on Jamaican music, because to a large extent, festival in those formative years, that coming out of the 60s, the 1970s into the 80s, it was them. They were responsible for doing a lot of arrangement with the entries for festival. They wrote the music scores, helped with writing. So the artists who come in with pre-written songs, they helped them frame out the song, etc. And then they wrote their own songs that people would perform. And I think Eric Donaldson basically blazed a trail. I mean, Eric Donaldson have this tone that is almost designed for festival.
Yeah,
and when you hear him belting out, I remember the first time I heard that song, This Is the Land of My Birth. And it don't matter how bad you feel about Jamaica, when that song play, it exudes nationalism.
Yeah, man, and patriotism.
Yes, and when him say I will never run away, my man say, boy, I can't get no visa. But not that. It was just a really great song.
Yes.
It just showed the writing prowess of Fab Five. They also had their own studio. You mentioned
Yes,
they were
stage records. I think.
right, stage records, and were responsible for releasing. Well, I think that's when you get to that stage as a musician, as an artist, where you take control of your production and so on. Fab Five ended up releasing some 26 albums.
The only thing that I have to complain about, Rich, is unless you had the 45s or the LPs, and the only digital footprint test like on iTunes is one song with some lick over tune on it, like Shaving Cream is not the original recording that I played earlier from 1975. And Fab Five, if you guys are watching, do release something on the digital era. Go back into the archives and take out the whole master tapes and do some digital thing, because I'm hungry for the music out here.
And I guess you could probably pin that down to, remember, most of the time they're on the road, and producing music and playing music are two separate, distinct, almost unrelated tasks, because one requires that you have to spend the time in the studio, and then you do that kind of production work. Whereas as a road band, all you need to do is rehearse, and you go up on the stage and you perform. Be that as it may, though, I agree with you. There is no excuse. But I think what we want to do, though, is share. You play a couple of songs from them already. Feeling Horny, All Night Party.
Yes.
Just to give you a little bit of a taste, what the Police High Command can do. I think somebody else had done a redo after that. What the hell the police can do.
What the hell the police can
Right.
do. I don't have that one though. I was looking for it. And then the one that I did find, the quality was very poor. So, but I can play Feeling Horny and All Night Party. Man, Feeling Horny and All Night Party.
You have to get them the juke, because those songs. What helped,
1986, 1989.
what helped too is, although the songs had that tendency towards sounding risky, the fact that the lyrics were not, it was more suggestive than stated. The songs made their way into the radio stations.
And also made its way mainstream consumption.
Absolutely, because they were basically targeting a sort of a middle of the road audience. I don't want to say it's an uptown thing, but there were favorites with the uptown party and club set.
Yeah, it did a Jamaican crossover.
And they had their support base to within the lower echelon. So the marketplace embraced them. And so for the better part of right up to the COVID time, they were in demand. There's no function that Fab Five was absent from.
Yeah, man. Them play Black Tie, them play, everything.
They play Shots and Rider, right? B Rider.
Yeah,
and
man.
then play, as you said, Black Tie and White Tie and White Gloves thing.
And let me tell you, the party album, people would literally play a Fab Five party album in their party. So if you have what volumes did they do again? I think they did four.
Yeah, I think it's 4 volumes.
So if you have them 4 volumes, you can get a nice party vibe at the yard without, people like me dead film good. Talking about risque, Richard, the most risque one that they have is Good Buddy.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, Don't forget to tell your friends.